Uh, I've. It's time for another episode of Stories About Stories. Uh, I say a lot. That's weird. As you can tell, I've cut my hair. It's a big sin. I'm really sorry. It won't be as floppy as normal. It's awkward. Uh, Today's story. Actually, I was thinking about Bluebeard, and I actually recorded this before, and it wasn't that good. It was terrible. I felt really awkward. It was the worst. So, we're going to do this again. We're going to do it better. Harder, stronger. That sounds worse somehow. Somehow this is turning out even worse. But that's okay, because that's what storytelling is about. Awkwardness. So, today's story. If you're following along somehow. I said I was talking about Bluebeard at a different time. Bluebeard was a story about murder and magic and so forth. We're going to do that again. This time we're going to go toward the magical, wonderful world of balladry. It's similar to folk tales, similar to fairy tales, in that it's a cumulative art. It's something where people have, you take a kernel of something and people talk about it and they tell the story and then they get rid of the stuff that they don't want anymore. And then they add in stuff that they think is cool. And then they add in, well, because we're all human, they add in sex and violence. And because that's fun. So this story is called Sweet William, which is a very nice sounding title. It sounds like it should be very nice. It's not nice. No. It's very nice. Because, as I mentioned, things could start out in a ballad or in a story with a kernel of truth. It could start out with an inciting incident. And I wish that we knew what that could be with this particular story. I wish I knew what caused the beginning of everything with this. But we don't know. All we know is that there's this girl named Eleanor. She has a husband. This should be a sign. He doesn't get his own puppet. Just a finger. She has a husband. She has a little baby. Oh, that's a bad sign too. She has a little baby. She has a castle. She has servants. She has a mom. Oh, right here somewhere. Beginning of the story. Very beginning. Right off the bat. All we know is that the mom has decided to hire some random mercenaries to show up and kill the husband, pew, kill the servants, pew, and, kill the baby in the bed next to Eleanor. That's very sad. That's a very sad beginning to this story. Not good. No. Well, Eleanor clearly, this is not a good time for her. She's looking around at all this. She knows that her mom, I don't know how she knows. Maybe, there's a big sign. Maybe it's like, mom did this, which is gruesome. And there's no explanation given for why her mom has done this. And you have to remember, this is all in song form as this story is being told. So, they had the opportunity. You have some rhyming verses. But no, we're not going there. We're just gonna... Mom did it. So Eleanor does what she considers to be the best move. Which is she... doesn't do much for the servants, I guess, but she buries her husband. Good idea. Buries the baby. Sad idea, but good idea. Cuts off her hair. Alright. Changes her name to William. Sweet William, but William. And then goes to court to serve her king. Posted king. Quite big king there. Well, William, that's what you do. That's what you do in the face of tragedy. You cut off your hair and you change your name and your gender identity, and off you go. Off you go. Good for you. Now, at court, we're gonna switch pronouns because that's the right thing to do. William has made his choice. At court, he does a bang-up job. He's actually doing a fantastic job. He starts lowly, but he does such an amazing job that he gets quickly promoted up the ranks until he is the king's steward. And you have to realize that's the same thing as like being like the butler, but like a Downton Abbey butler. That's like the power, keys to the castle type thing. The right-hand man of the king. And, well, they are definitely buddies. Yes, they are. The king certainly thinks so. Buddies. The king looks at William and says, "Golly, he's such a great pal." Meanwhile, William is, frankly, a lot more on top of things. And William's like, King is the bestest. And that would be pretty great. But I am also very issuey. So, and he doesn't know what my deal is. So I'm not going to touch that. I'm just going to look longingly from afar. Wait, this is afar. That was kind of close. This is afar. Far. Surprisingly, for a ballad, or for any story really, I'm actually very impressed with this story for this reason. We actually, one of the many issues beyond what's already apparent that is brought into this is that there's actually a fairly good description of the PTSD he's going through at the moment, wherein we find out that he is, for instance, on the regular, dreaming about his bed filled with blood and mercenaries all around him. Little things about that. Little things, dead babies. So maybe now isn't the time for him to pursue anything. He's feeling that. He's not quite over some things. So you know what? Also a good decision. You're making healthy life decisions. I approve. It's actually a very Twelfth Night kind of thing between them. It's very, Orsino and Viola / Cesario. Twelfth Night's a different story. Very fun. We will be telling that at a different time because I think it's hilarious and I love it. Okay. That's sort of part one of the story. This is a 3-part story. It's a noisy thing. Ignore that. Ignore the noisy thing. Okay. I'm probably going to hit it like 5 more times. I'm so sorry. Okay. Part 1. Part 2. One day, the king says, I'm super bored. I'm going to go out to the woods, and I'm going to hunt some stuff. I'm going to hunt. And everyone's like, okay, we'll get together a hunting party. We'll go do some stuff. He's like, no, I'm going to go by myself. I'm like, really? By yourself? That's a thing you're doing? He's like, yep. Totally going by myself. It's happening. I'm going. Now, for a king, this is kind of weird because, it's like Captain Kirk going down to a planet with all the important officers and no red shirts. Like, why would you do that? Why? Like, can you bring a couple just in case? But no, king was going. No red shirts. Just heading out. Leaving Sweet William in charge. Which, bro can do. Because he's super on top of things. So, away the king goes. Now, unusually, he goes, Sweet William, he's out of the story for the time being. He's out of part 2. So the king goes, through the woods on his valiant steed, and he's not really getting a lot of, he's not seeing anything, which is very unusual, apparently. There's no things to hunt. And finally, it's the end of the day, and he's thinking of turning home, when suddenly he sees the white deer. Now, I have to realize in ballads, in fairy tales, and anything like that, anything white is going to be magical. Because white is the color of purity. Thank you, Western society. So, he's like, aye, that is amazing. I clearly have to run after that and kill it. So it is mine forever, because that's what you do with special things. You immediately murder them. Because that hasn't been weird for anything else in the story. So, he starts to go after it. And strangely enough, for something that's totally not magical, it goes uphill and down dale and totally goes out of sight and disappears. And, he thinks he's chasing after it in one direction, it's going the other direction. And it's what we might call totally dangerous. And maybe he shouldn't chase after it, because it's a magical thing and maybe it doesn't want to get killed. But he goes after it anyway, because that's what you do. I don't know. And, by the way, if you're ever in that situation, you're in this situation, this is an important life skill. I'm going to teach you an important life skill. This is something that I was taught from a young age. I'm going to share this with you. And drop my king. So one sec. Wait. Okay. I'm back. Putting down the king. Important life skill. If you're in a situation where there is a white animal, an unusual beast, or a strange light flickering in the woods, what one might call a will-o'-the-wisp, something that draws you down a strange path. I'm just saying, don't fucking follow it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Because, traditionally speaking, folklorically speaking, it is probably a magical object which is trying to lead you to death and doom, traditionally. In a more realistic sense, it might be general danger, somebody out in the woods, or you might be super drunk and maybe you'll, crash into things and, bump into things. Yeah, stuff like that. Folklore and fairy tales exist for a reason and not just for, magic and things like that, warnings. But apparently certain people don't listen to things. Don't listen to things, even though this is much more common back in the day, hearing these kind of warnings. Me? I'm special. I just know this stuff. Him? That was day-to-day stuff. I don't know what he was thinking. So, maybe it was a special kind of magic. He just had to chase that deer. Uphill and down dale. Except it was the woods, so not really hills or dales. And, valiantly trying not to get his head knocked off by, branches. So, somehow, though, he survives all that. He survives these trials of dangers. And the deer leads him to a small and beautiful clearing. And promptly disappears. Because, of course, it did. Because it's magic. Now, in this small and beautiful clearing, there's not much there. Except, oh wait, a tiny tombstone. How tiny, though? tiny. Oh, so tiny. Don't tell him. He's like, oh, that's a great place to sit. I'm just gonna sit right here on this tombstone. That's a fantastic place to sit. Come see. And we're all like, oh, bro. Too soon. Way too soon. That was only like 15 verses ago. What are you even doing? Now there he is in the middle of this clearing. It's very nice. It's beautiful. And it becomes more beautiful. It becomes lovely. He's looking around, and it becomes bright and shiny and quiet. Too quiet. Like, you know, things do in stories. And that's when we get the introduction of white animal number 2. Oh, it's a beautiful white dove. Oh. Now what? Doves are totally white. That's a thing that happens. Do they live in the woods typically? I don't know, but maybe. Maybe they did back in the day. That's fine. That's not like white deers. White deers are weird. White doves, totally normal. So nothing to be concerned. Well, maybe something to be concerned about. Maybe a tiny thing to be concerned about. Just a little thing. It's singing. Well, doves make noises, don't they? They cheep or something, don't they? I think they do. Pretty sure they do. That's a thing doves do. They're not typically songbirds, but I don't think. But yeah, they not usually words. That's not usually a thing they do, I don't think. That's not typical of your average dove. Not words. In English. It's not a thing they do, typically. So that's not a thing. I also don't think that they sing about murder. I don't think that's a thing that happens typically either. I don't think that's the thing where they sing about how how tragic something is. You know, the tragedy. They have something about tragedy of murder. Tragic. So sad. But you know, maybe that's a thing that happens sometimes. Maybe. One more thing. Small thing. Small. So tiny. Hardly worth mentioning. So small. Little weird thing. Little. It is crying blood tears. It's just a thing that's happening. It's just right there. Just falling. I believe the description is like rain as it flies. It's just a thing that's happening as it goes. And then it flies over, singing about murder, and with blood, all the blood, a lot of blood, its eyes, because that's not weird. And then just lands right next to the king. Right there. Right there. Because that's not uncomfortable. It's not an awkward sitting companion at all. So, yeah, that's happening. The bird keeps singing. And the king is understandably freaked out for a while, as we all would be. But he does notice that, strangely, the bird keeps singing the same words over and over again. And as with anything, it gets a little repetitious. So the king, he knows how to get stuff done. He's like, okay, seriously, bro? Do you have anything else to say? Because I got it, there was a white deer. I could go back and Or, you know, you're pretty weird. I could just kill you. Bird knows what's up. He's like, okay, I'll tell you my story. First, I have to bleed some more all over the ground. Make this nice and bloody. Get some blood in you. But I'll tell you my story. Just gonna point this out. Sorry. Bird's just gonna point this out. He starts going into, let's say, the first several verses of the song. Let's say, repeating them. Putting that out there. Little things like, or mother did her deadly spite, for she sent thieves in the dark of the night. They come to rob, they come to slay. They made their mark, they went their way. Little things like that. And he's like, huh. That's odd. What a strange tale to be told. I wonder what it has to do with me. Oh, bro. You're gonna find out. And Dove's like, oh, there's a story. There's a story. There's this girl named Eleanor. Maybe you know her. I don't know Eleanor. The thieves came. Oh, they killed her husband, and they killed her little baby. And King's like, oh, that's really tragic. Not sure what it has to do with me. But you'll see, bro. And then, oh, she buried all her stuff. And then, oh, she decided to, what's that? Cut her hair. Change her name. To William. I went to court to serve her king. Just saying, huh? Might be you. Might be you, bro. Just putting that out there, says the dove, apparently. You know, if I was telling the story, which I am. So, then, you know, the king's like, oh my god. You know, the dove's done with its, you know, the dove's done. The dove has done his business, so to speak. The ground, as we discover, is now covered in blood. It's like mud blood. It's mud. It's mud made of blood. Mud blood. Sorry. Harry Potter. This is a serious show. Okay. So he gets up and away he goes. He's done with the bird. By the way, the reason that there's two animals, which is kind of weird for a story, the reason there's two animals is because frequently when you have white animals show up to tell anybody things about murder, or animals in general to tell people things about murder, that's because they're the souls of dead people, murdered people. And of course we have two murdered people in the course of this story. We have the husband and we have the baby. And there's the implication, because there's the bird is the talking one, that the bird is probably the husband, and the deer is probably the baby. But, you know, who knows? Who knows, really? I don't know. Because, you know, the deer explicitly says female, and then earlier in the song, the baby's supposed to be male. I don't know. But, you know, there's two dead people. Let's say yes. We'll call it a yes. Okay. Moving on. There's the king. Now, he's a king. He knows how to get stuff done. He heads to home. He's got two thoughts on his mind. This is explicitly said. He's got two thoughts on his mind. First thought. clearly there has been a crime committed. He's gonna get all his noblemen and all his other people together. He's gonna hunt down that mom. He's gonna capture her. And then, quite violently, he's going to set her on fire like a pig. Just burn her right up. Pew. So that's a thing you're gonna do. That's what you do when... Well, alright then. There's baby murdering, so... There you go. Different time, different age. Alright. Thing he's thinking about number 2. Oh, who could that be? What? He's had a... Our king here has had a... He's gone through an emotional roller coaster during the course of this ballad. He's gone through a journey. He has a lot of thoughts about a lot of things. He spent some time thinking about his buddy, his good pal, what friends they are. Like the way Oscar Wilde had buddies. Henry II had buddies. Kit Marlowe, I think he had some buddies too. All these guys had buddies. Bro. Okay. But hey! Turns out William is Eleanor. Well, hey! Check that out. That makes things a lot easier, doesn't it, bro? Yeah! No more need to think complicated thoughts. Complicated about Williams. No, it's an Eleanor. Yeah. Oh, honey. If only the ballad went longer. But anyway. Part 3. He shows back up at the castle. There's Eleanor. Sorry. William. I'm having some pronoun problems. William. William is with the other nobles in court. They are all actually playing at ball. It's not specifically said what kind of ball this is, but frankly, it was probably baseball. We've had baseball for a really long time. It was either baseball or tennis, but frankly, probably baseball. We've had that for ages, longer than you'd think. Variants of that. I mean, maybe cricket? I don't think so. No. Definitely that. So everybody's chilling out, having a good time. King shows up, and then just rides into the courtyard on his horse, which is a little weird. Sweeps William up, and starts making out with him on the horse. In front of everybody. Not Eleanor. William. Nicely done, bro. Well done. Now there actually are some very excellent, there's very excellent mental image going on here. Brought on by the story. Wherein we discover that, there's not a lot of condemnation going on here. What we have is, the nobles basically going, and in particular, the lady nobles, the ladies are kind of going, well, all right, keep going, keep going. Turn around a little bit. Yeah. Oh, that's good. Slip a little tongue. There you go. Now, maybe they knew that William was Eleanor. Maybe. Maybe they just like seeing dudes together. It's a popular topic on the internet. Putting it out there. Who knows? Okay. So, then the king, having gotten that sorted out, he's a king. He knows what it's about. Goes on with the other thing he was going to do. Sends out his nobles, sends out his other people, and by God, finds the mom, and yeah, sets her on fire. That's literally the end of the story. It's like 3 or 4 verses worth of her being on fire. A lot of descriptions of her being on fire. A lot of her not regretting her actions so much as regretting that Eleanor became William and was successful. So that's more like a kind of Scooby-Doo villain, regret. And then, yeah, just a lot of descriptions of burning. Did I mention the thing about how ballads and folklore and stuff like that, like sex and violence? We had the sex, we had violence, and now we have more violence. Just a bookend of violence. And that's the end of the story. Very, dead babies, fire, magic, murder, gender identity, PTSD, making out. It's a good story. A lot of stuff going on. I actually very sadly know all the lyrics to this. At least a version of all of this. Martin Carthy does a very fantastic version. It takes me literally about 20 minutes to sing, which is a version of cool that I can't readily define. Yeah. And I don't think that this one really needs a movie. I don't, because I do think that Twelfth Night really covers it. The most interesting thing about this story is the cross-dressing, the gender thing, and the fact that there's going to be some issues down the line. Frankly, I think like who was he really interested in? Is it gonna be Eleanor, or was it William all along? Orsino, Cesario, Viola. Who knows? Who knows? A very interesting adaptation actually is a book called Through a Brazen Mirror. I think it's maybe by Delia Sherman. It's got very medieval style language, so if you're used to a, more pseudo fantasy thing, no. But it does take into account a very, straightforward take on what's actually going on with, Eleanor, King, William. And also goes into whatever in God's name the mother is thinking in the course of all this and what her motivation might be. So, excellent. Very good. Beyond that, I got nothing.